of Matthew chapter 8, verses 23 through 31. And it reads, "And when he was entered into a ship, his disciples followed him.
And behold, there arose a great tempest in the sea, insomuch that the ship was covered with the waves, but he was asleep.
And his disciples came to him and awoke him, saying, Lord, save us, we perish.
And he said unto them, Why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm.
But the men marveled, saying, What manner of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him?
And when he was come to the other side of the country of the Gergershens, there met him two possessed with devils, coming out of the tombs, exceeding fierce, so that no man might pass by that way.
And behold, they cried out, saying, What have we to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God? Art thou come hither to torment us before the time?
And there was a good way off from them a herd of many swine feeding.
Together. So the devils besought him, saying, If thou cast us out, suffer us go away into the herd of swine. All right. Let us pray. Father, come before you with a humble heart, Father, saying thank you. Thank you for all that you've done and doing, Father. Thank you for this day you have bestowed upon us, Father, to allow us to participate in your plan, Father. Father, we ask that you look after our pastor, strengthen and guide him, Father. Help him along the way, Father, as you continue to use him as you see fit, Father. And we ask that you look after his family as well, Father. Strengthen him and guide him, Father. And Father, I ask that you look after the congregation, Father, Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church, Father. Help those who are on their way here, those who are here, and those who may be watching us virtually, Father. I ask that you strengthen them and open their minds, open their hearts, Father, so that they can receive the word of understanding through you, Father, and what it is the lesson will teach us, Father. And Father, I ask that you just continue to bless me as well, Father, and my family, Father. I ask that all these blessings be done in your darling Son, Jesus, who is the Christ. And let the church say amen, amen, amen. All right. Our lesson today, it's going to be nourishing. It's going to be very promising. It's a lot of this we are familiar with, but as we dig into it deeper, we get an understanding of operation. We've been studying Jesus and God all-knowing and all-seeing. And now we're dealing with the power. Now, last week we dealt with the power to control the weather. As they was in the ship and it was going to and fro, how Jesus was able to get up and just calm the weather. I mean, just stop it. So with that being said, and we looking at that kind of power to stop the weather from being a storm, now we finna venture into our lesson for today, which is lesson 12, and it's titled, Jesus Casts Out Legions. His lesson text is Mark chapter 5, verses 1 through 20. Our time between AD 26 and 30. The place, territory of Gadara. Golden text, howbeit Jesus suffered him not, but said unto him, Go home to thy friends and tell them how great things the Lord had done for thee, and had compassion on thee. Our introduction reads, this week's lesson picks up right where last week's left off. Having demonstrated his power over creation by calming a storm in Mark 4, Jesus was next confronted by a violent, demon-possessed man. This man was not merely possessed by a single demon, but rather by an intimidating legion. Would such an intimidating adversary be able to resist Jesus? The text does not even entertain the ideal. Jesus easily overcome them by simply ordering them out. Wow. Y'all get ready now. By easily casting out the legion of demons, Jesus demonstrated that he rules over not only the natural, but also the supernatural. No matter whether our problems today are natural or supernatural, Jesus can take care of us as well. His power is unmatched, and he uses it both to protect his followers from danger and to save spiritually oppressed people. No matter the person and no matter the circumstances, Jesus is able to deliver anymore. Jesus is able to deliver deliver anyone. So what we're looking at is no limit. Our lesson is going to show us some unlimited powers again. If you have the power to stop the natural storms that are prescribed to happen, not so much to be so fierce, but to give us water, to give us rain, and to just do its transition to help the cycle of life continue, and then tell it to stop. You disturbing my rest. You know, I mean, he could have did this any kind of way, but it happens to be powerful to wake up, not worried about the storm at all, knew it was coming. See, we got to remember, all-knowing. Everything about Jesus' path was designed as part of a plan. Most people say, well, why was he even going over there? Why he had to take the boat then? He should have seen it coming. Why go get... We're dealing with a thought process and a plan that's above our understanding. And because this plan is beyond our understanding, we have to trust God in this plan that we're in. So right here, this is going to show us the setting. It's going to show us the conflict and then the fallout. And we're going to get all that from here because we need to at least comprehend the power without a limit, not with a limit. You know, PG&E inside this building has a limit. We plug in, we get what we can from that plug, a source. But it comes from outside, from a connection from another, then a connection from another that's a bigger source. But this source is not greater than. We have to identify. This has a limit to it. When we deal with our PG&E as the power to illuminate the house of God, you know, to turn the lights on and cut the air conditioner on or the heater on, there's a limit. What we're about to get into here is an unlimited power that reaches beyond comprehension, put it like that. Anything we deal with on earth, God has the power to deal with it, put it like that. How many times we done heard the saying, God can take us and deal with anything that we have if we just let it go. So let's read verses, Mark chapter 5, and we will read the first 5 verses. And they came over unto the other side of the sea, into the country of the Gardenians. And when he was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs. And no man could bind him, no, not with chains, because that he had been often bound with fetters and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder by him, which means he broke them. And the fetters broken in pieces, neither could any man tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. Now, first of all, cutting yourself with stones. You know, that's a rough edge, okay? You living in the tombs day and night. This is where you resting. Every day. People try and bind you with chains and everything to stabilize. It ain't happening. You breaking them loose. So we talking about some serious strength. We talking about a different mindset, and we talking about a person who is possessed. So that eliminates a conscious thought, a reasonable understanding. Things of natural mindset is not here. We talking about being possessed. We talking about a different attitude, a different behavior. We're talking about a condition that allows this man to break chains without thinking. That's a lot. We've seen it. I won't say it was demon possessed, but we've seen this kind of strength. We've seen this kind of mindset, and it happens. So let's look at meeting the demonic. There is no conflict between the various Gospels accounts of this miracle happening in the land of the Gorgonzians, or the land of the Gordanians. Both phrases refer to the same Gentile area. So we're looking at an area where Gentiles was housed and living. This was their community. And in their community, this is what existed, was a man that was possessed. So they knew and recognized this as different lands that we just heard. But that's like being in Berkeley and you say, well, I'm going to go over to Emeryville, or I'm going to go over to West Oakland. That's how close it is, but this is how they label it. But it was all in a Gentile area where just the Gentiles hung out. The Gentiles did their work. This where they functioned at. You know, they wasn't high society, but they was the ones working hard to establish their own way of living. So when you hear these different towns, just realize it's towns, but it all consists of, the population was that of Gentiles. So as we find out that it refers to the same Gentile area, this story took place in a small town of Gergesa by the sea. The town was in a general region associated with Gedor, the largest city that the whole region would have been associated with. This might be compatible to telling someone living in another state, I'm from Cleveland, but telling someone local that you are from Middleburg Heights, a suburb only someone from Ohio would recognize. Same thing. We're looking at where they given the same illustration. You know, if you're talking to somebody out of state, it's easy for you to say over there in Berkeley. But if you're talking to somebody local and you say over there in Berkeley by Emeryville where it cuts off of MacArthur, then somebody can identify. They can kind of visualize where you're talking about specifically. But this is what we're dealing with when we're dealing with this man who is possessed. In neither case are you being deceptive. You are just more specific for the person who knows the area. So when you give it the description, what they're saying is that you're somebody out of state won't identify with you specifically. So you do a general. No, it's over there in West Oakland. No, it's over there off of MacArthur. And MacArthur runs this way like this, a main street. You would do your description a little different to show exactly what this person is. But if it's not like that, then that's what it is that you're doing. Now, when you talk with somebody who's local, then it's different. because they understand what you're saying. So this is what they're telling us here about trying to tell us about the man who is possessed. But they also want us to understand that regardless of the area, we're going to be dealing with the man and him being possessed. So the description of the demonic is more like the demon-possessed man was miserable and constantly abused by unclean spirits. He cut himself, we've seen that in verse 5, and he lived in a graveyard, which would have rendered him ceremoniously unclean. It also would have provided him little shelter, and he was undoubtedly exposed to the elements. He was an outcast from society and isolated from everyone. But the demons who tormented him, it was a miserable experience physically, emotionally, and spiritually. We have some homeless that's going through this. And we have some homeless who are mentally challenged, or should I say mentally deprived. But they can demonstrate a strength beyond normalcy. When you try to restrain them, a person of schizophrenia, they are stronger than you would expect. Those who are mentally challenged are wired up different. When we touch something hot, it burns us. We say hot, ouch. But you might have those who are mentally challenged and or wired differently, they don't feel no pain. So if they don't feel no pain, or they're not conscious of their nervous system and what we take for granted, which is touch, and their touch is gone, then for you to try to restrain them is hard, because you're trying to restrain them, and they don't want you to restrain them, but they exhibit a strength beyond one person can handle, or two people. It's been known that they can handle up to 4 people, 5 people, depending on their height and size and weight. The challenge here is this guy is possessed, and he's possessed with demons. So he's mentally going through some things. Spiritually, he's going through some things. Emotionally, he's going through some things. And physically, he's experiencing some things. That's a lot when it's not in order. Usually we look for a cause to give you a physical experience that challenges you, like lifting weights. You know you can probably lift 200 pounds, but you can't start out lifting it. You're going to start out with the lower and work your way up. When we talk about emotionally, some people can be emotionally disconnected. They feel no pain. They have no remorse. They have no compassion. It happens. It's here today. We also look at spiritually disconnected, or should I say spiritually displaced. You know, if you don't know the spirit, how are you going to identify the spirit? You know, the Bible tells us about try the spirit by the spirit. It doesn't specifically name a spirit, but we're looking at a man who is possessed, so spiritually he's disruptive, because one of them is that gives us a clear sign is that he's in the tombs. He's living in the graveyard, and he's not worried about it. He's up all times, the day and night. People cannot bind him. He's walking around doing whatever he want to do. People are terrified behind this man, and they don't want to deal with him. Well, we about to see. But we're hearing unclean spirit, a spirit with no discipline, a spirit that runs rampant, that's causing disruption between the emotion, the physical, and the spiritual. So there's no order. It's out of context. He's operating off of confusion, disruption. He has no comprehensive understanding of his behavior. He's just running rapid. So with no destiny, no way of communicating, get to him and talk to him and get him right. You're looking at some of the people we deal with on the streets. You don't know their condition, but you see them in their behavior mode. You might see them just sitting on the corner talking to themselves or acting out to themselves. These are some behaviors that you see when a person is disconnected from order or discipline, or what we call is common behavior. They doing something that's different. They living different. But at no time I haven't seen it yet, but is there people now today living in the cemetery yards? I wonder, But we know they on the street. We know the homeless is on the street. We know there's some mental health issues with people that's on the street. We hear about how they get challenged and the police show up and they don't know how to deal with it, and first thing they think they either got to electrocute them or shoot them. So they learning now we have to get people to get out there and identify with them and work with them and help them along the way. So in doing this, we're coming to an understanding that we're dealing with somebody who's possessed. Possessed. We just stepped it up a notch. We see mentally challenged people here. We don't know if they possessed or not. The closest we can get to possession is those who are schizophrenic, those who are mentally challenged, or those who burnt out. We call them burnt out, who didn't use a lot of drugs in their life, and their mindset is different. They just erratical. They have to live for that drug. Well, we've seen that. That's the closest I believe I have come to seeing anyone possessed. So to hear that somebody's in the tombs, somebody's living there, and they constantly abuse themselves, and they got unclean spirits, and they cutting themselves with rocks. That's a challenge, just to watch it. So right here, we're going to find that the term unclean spirit used in the passage is synonymous with devil. We should not waste time trying to draw a nuisance distinction between unclean spirits and devils, given that the book of Mark uses both terms interchangeably. Okay, so Mark is using it interchangeably, devil versus unclean spirit. Day and night the man cried out among the tombs. That does not mean that he never slept, but rather that the unclean spirits would afflict him at any time of day. The afflicted man could not be restrained. He had unnatural strength. Unnatural. Most of the time we believe out of what we see. You see this bulky guy, and he ain't got a trim of fat on him, and he looks solid. We assume that he could lift a car, depending on his size and his build, or he could lift us. But we see strength when we see this bulkiness of a man built like this, who has been working out with weights and all this. We will sort of assume that he has a good amount of strength. Now we talking about constructive strength. He worked out to get to that. What we're listening to here is about a man who could not be restrained. He had unnatural strength. That means he can look like you and I. And you can assume that you could take him over and just, man, come on here. And it's not happening. He been to pick you up, dropped you, wait on the next one, then kick somebody else, then flip somebody else, and they still trying to figure out how we gonna tase him. They done tased him 3 times. He ain't sat down. He ain't moving. He's still talking to him crazy. Unnatural. Because you would assume that if you shoot him with that taser and them electrodes is going through him, it ought to put him in a shock or convulsion, knock him down, just put him out. And he's sitting up there still talking to you. You hitting him with them volts, and he's still talking to you and daring you to come near him. This is supernatural, and you got to remember, we've seen the police try and challenge and meet this kind of demand of unnatural power that schizophrenic people can have. And we've seen them get tased, and they still keep wielding that knife. So when the police see them coming towards them with this big old butcher knife, what you think they gonna do? They shoot him. We didn't shot you with electricity. Now you chasing after the officer right here who probably can't run, and he's scared. So what do you think he gonna do? He gonna shoot you. You done scared him half to death. They done sat there and shot you with all these electrodes. You ain't moving. You still talking crazy. And you dare them come near you. They don't know how to come near you. They don't know how to approach you. I ain't seen a karate man yet go up against one of them. How they gonna win? Probably. You know, you see that on TV. Oh man, he Bruce Lee. Oh, Jet Li. In reality, this man has a butcher knife in his hand, and we done shot him with electrode, and we have to approach him to subdue him because he's threatening the surrounding area. They're gonna shoot him. Some of them will shoot the wounded. Maybe he'll go down if I shoot him in the leg. But what if he don't go down? Now he just got a wound in the leg, so what they do? They end up shooting him in the torso. Hopefully to damage something that would allow him to just lay down, run out of blood, or get nauseated, you know. But that's as close as I can get to a description to show you supernatural. And so if this was my perception of what supernatural can do, step it up a couple of more notches. Because we're talking about somebody who's possessed. He was able to break chains. Demons can confer supernatural strength. Society could not tame him. The wording of the Greek text is in verse 3 might imply that at one time he could be bound. But not he, no longer could, because he was getting worse. They was having a field day in him. They had him doing all kind of stuff. They didn't care nothing about limitations. They went and was pushing limits to have him do all kind of stuff. Put fear in the people. Cause people to, he coming in. Be nervous. So either way, he was able to break chains with demonic fury. And there was nothing anyone could do. As far as anyone could tell, he was beyond help. Okay? For you to say beyond help, beyond human help, that's a clear understanding. The doctors, paramedics, emergency response teams, people in general didn't know what to do. They tried bonding, and they had to try it more than once. But they realized they couldn't hold him with the chains. They realized they knew where to find him, but they say it was getting worse. For it to get worse, and for you to know that it's getting worse, they must have observed him during a period where it wasn't that blatant, that he was obviously possessed. He might have been cutting himself with the rock, and you figured, you know, he's got some problems going on. He's depressed or something. But then, day in, day out, he's just walking, talking, doing stuff. You say, wait a minute, it's nighttime. Why is he up? And he walking around. He probably humming around in the yard. You know, and you think, dude, come out of there. You know, don't be in the yard like that, man. The people are buried in there. Respect the dead. He don't care nothing about that. He figuring out where he gonna sleep at. He had his choice. So you're looking at a behavior that tells you, whoa, you know, your red flag go up. We see that today with the homeless, with those mentally challenged who cannot take care of their finances and get a job and work and abstain an apartment for themselves. No, they need a lot of help, you know. But you have those out there, they say if they're not a danger to themselves or others, they can stay out there. So they homeless. And they don't mind staying on the streets. No responsibility other than to themselves. They don't bother no one. Now take that and put some meth in them. Another drug. These new drugs nowadays, they just wire you up here wrong. But you mix that with somebody who's mentally ill, who can't afford their medicine, and got a hold to some bad drugs, it's on. You don't know what you got because that combination affects people differently for each one. So you got somebody under the drugs who haven't had their medicine and borderline a schizophrenic, then you looking at an individual disturbed, we call them, or again, mental health issues. But without controlling it, they're a time bomb in society. And you don't know the difference of a time bomb. You don't know that that person is a time bomb. You might see them on the corner every day. You say, hello, Joe, or hey, Samantha. It's no problem. Hey, how you doing? But no medicine after a period of time to help stabilize the mindset, and yet you induce a chemical that's going to throw them off anyway, and it's not productive. Then after a period of time, it starts eating up the brain and causing them to be baffled and confused about society and people, and now they're looking at you like you've done them wrong. And you don't know how to take that because you used to speak to them every day. Now you speak and they say, what you looking at? You don't want no problems from them because now you can feel some attitude. This is what we're dealing with here. A demon possessed man at a higher level. Yes, Brother Danny.
Minister Joel, I have to believe his friends and family must have been concerned about him too.
They could have been concerned about him, but apparently there was a level that they stopped being concerned and more fearful. They couldn't do nothing. So they became fearful because he's breaking chains, he's cutting himself, he's spiritually disconnected, emotionally disconnected, he has no compassion, he's physically challenged, and he is strong, and he got an attitude. Living in the tombs, how do you visit? You know, we have limitations within ourselves that society has allowed us to be incorporated with, that we see that when we go to cemeteries, we respect the grounds. You're talking about a man here who's possessed, don't care nothing about the grounds. In his mind, he's at home. He's among the dead. You know, we don't know his mindset, but his family and friends, they gave up because they can't reach him. When you can't reach a person and you don't know how to talk to them, or you can't get nothing out of them to tell you that they're in pain, and you see it, and they can't convey it, will confuse you. So what we're looking at is somebody who's possessed, you can't communicate with because they can't communicate with you and don't want to because they're too busy communicating with themselves. We don't know how many demons and legions he's talking to or what they are telling him, but they have taken over. Everything he might have known once is gone. So family and friends, in fear, I can't deal with him. So what we're about to run into here is we're going to look at the conflict. I'm going to read verses 6 through 13. But when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshiped him and cried with a loud voice and said, what have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee by God, that thou torment me not. For he said unto him, come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. And he asked him, what is thy name? And he answered, saying, my name is Legion, for we are many. And he besought him much that he would not send them away out of the country. Now there was a nigh unto the mountains a great herd of swine feeding. And all the devils besought him, saying, send us into the swine, that we may enter into them. And forthwith Jesus gave them leave, and the unclean spirits went out and entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down the steep place into the sea. They were about 2,000 and were choked in the sea. Wow. That's a clear clue. Not only they recognizing, because if you remember last week, they said, what kind of man is this who controls a storm? Well, the legions know. The legions know, the demons know that Son of God. They know, so they sounding off. And they say, hold on. It's not our time to torment us. Why are you here? Now, we have to identify right here how to plan. I want you to look at the plan now. We was in the boat last week, and we seen the power of the storm get stopped. Now, the boat didn't stop. The boat went to the land. You don't think that's a part of the plan, that you had to go through that storm to get to this man? So when you get to this man, the legions know who you are. Your disciples have just gotten their question answered. So now they looking at, you about to deal with this? I can assume that the disciples probably stood behind Jesus when dealing with this man, because we didn't heard the stories about him. He's breaking chains, he's acting crazy. Look at him. He don't even look right. We ain't never had to deal with this before. We always avoided it.
They probably told Jesus, we shouldn't go that way.
Right. Why are we even over this way? But at the same token, they was on a far off. But they recognized who was coming. And they probably was hoping, I hope he turned left. Don't let Son of God come this way, all the way over here where we at messing with this man. You know, we having fun over here, disturbing him and causing fear in the community. Now, the plan, we have to identify the plan, the process. Get in the boat, go through the storm. Now you see that your disciples don't understand the power you just exhibit. They say, what kind of man is this? We following you, Messiah, Jesus. We know what you're capable of doing. We know you are part of God's will. But at the same token, we don't understand the power that you possessing. You done made a whole storm stop. We still stuck on that. Now we done got to the land, we walking, we still stuck on the storm. They looking back here at the storm, you walking towards the cemetery. Why is we going near the cemetery? So these changes that the disciples may not be accustomed to out of routines or movement behavior that we do under our own structure. We avoid areas as much as we can that might cause us discomfort. We want to always operate in structure or comfort. When we run across a situation that might cause that discomfort, we have a tendency to pause. Can we handle it? What level is it? We examine it. And then we try to address it. If we can avoid it, we gone. That's the bottom line, we gone. Why do you think they got cars? People homeless, if you had to walk, like much as they had to walk and get on boats, you passed this kind of situation. You've seen the homeless. But nowadays, because you got a car, you just drive right by. They standing right there at the end of the freeway with a sign. You know they right there at the sign. You know they right there at that light. And you sitting there like you don't even see them. Waiting for that light to change. Be the first one on the gas. Because you know what they looking for. Same thing right here. Why are you going towards the cemetery, Lord? You done already stopped the storm? Let's park for a minute. Let's talk about it. Jesus was on a mission. See, Jesus was on our Father's business. The man of Jesus was following the will of God. So the disciples was following the man because it was hard for them to keep comprehending God. You're going to get it. Everybody enjoyed the benefit, but they didn't want to deal with the consequences or the situation. Jesus had to go deal with the situation. There was a reason for him to be there. And he had to be there when he be there. Does that make sense? Yeah. The storm he had to go through so that the disciples can increase their faith. When you know better, you're supposed to do better. When you see that this man has stopped a storm, you know you in good hands. That's the bottom line. Your faith and belief in him says keep following him, right? He's stopping storms. Who gonna mess with him? Okay, the Bible tells us what? If God is for us, who can be against us? No weapon formed against us shall what? Prosper. So of course they're gonna follow Jesus, the man with the power. But now we're going towards the cemetery. Now we're dealing with a man who is possessed. And by him being possessed, nobody wants to deal with him, but everybody's talking about him. Don't go over there. He over there. I seen him back there by Sister Sonia, by Jethro's cemetery area. They watching. They know where he at. They got to keep an eye on him because he scares them. He worries them because they can't reach him. He's a danger to them. So this is what we're dealing with. So we're going to look at the demons. Seeing Jesus from afar, the man ran towards him. Once the man got closer, the demons recognized who Jesus was. This is in sharp contrast to the disciples who wondered about Jesus' identity in the preceding chapter. That was not the only time that demons recognized Jesus. Although many people failed to recognize who Jesus was, demons immediately recognized him and knew that he had power over them. Hello. Despite knowing about Jesus, they remained his enemies. Knowing about Jesus is not enough. So in other words, they knew of Jesus and what he's capable of doing. But because of their nature, they had no problems being disrespectful. They didn't run nowhere. See, there's a time when the demons will be tormented. And they didn't want it to happen right now because they say, hold on, it ain't the time right now. This is supposed to be happening later. Why is you here? So then they make a bargain. All right. Since I got to get out of here, let's go over there. So they bargained. But they was being disrespectful, even though they recognized the power. See, demons know the power of God. When you know someone in power, it changes a person's mindset. Go to a place of business. You go to the car dealership. You want to buy a car. You got a bunch of people coming out want to sell you a car. But let's say you got a lot of money. They know you have a lot of money. Here comes either the manager or the owner to greet you. Hey, how you doing, Arlington? Are you doing all right? All right, good. Look, what can we do for you? Man, I heard you won that lotto, man, them couple of millions. Let me hook you up with, you follow what I'm saying? The salesman can't touch you now. The manager and the owner want to talk to you. They want your business, see? It's a different mindset. Because you're dealing with someone who has some power in the automotive area, maybe a car, a particular car you want made or whatever. They know this. You go on a job. There's a supervisor, and then there's a manager of that supervisor. These are people in position of authority. Same thing. They have a little power. Not a whole lot, but they have it on that job. They have it in that place of business. You respect that. When you are dealing with the cashier and the cashier give you problems, you say, can I speak to your supervisor, right? Okay, here come the head cashier, which seems to be the problem. Reason why they the head cashier, because they've been there longer and got some experience and they understand policy and procedure. Okay, they're going to talk to you. Because the cashier is going to keep cashing out other people. To minimize you and your issue, come over here, we're going to keep doing that over there. Now we're going to talk to you. So the demons, here come Jesus. He on his way. Oh, man, he coming over here. Man, I hope that dude don't come here. But he's coming. Now you have to deal with him. And because you have to deal with him, they found out knowing about Jesus was not enough. The man ran up to Jesus, worshiped him. They say worship, that became a debating area right there because he fell to his knees. But what you're looking at probably was a struggle. The innermost of him was relieved because the demons were no longer disturbing him enough, so he just bowed down because he recognized this is a man that can do this here. He can help me. So he could have just fell to his knees. We don't know if he was worshiping exactly, but we do know if he fell to his knees, it will symbolize that. It will have you thinking that. But he had to understand who Jesus was too. But if the demons knew, why wouldn't he know? Yes, Brother Danny.
I believe the man must have had some of his mind that he knew that, like you said, that Jesus could help him.
I agree.
Why would he run to Jesus?
And see, that's the part right there. That's the unknown part. This is the part where we start thinking and trying to put something in place there to identify his present position at that time, because we're being told he worshiped him. And at the same token, we know he was disturbed.
And the scripture says he ran to Jesus. So
Yes.
he saw Jesus, the man saw Jesus, and he probably thought in his mind, I got to get over there.
Well, not just got to get over there, I need help. You know, in when we get desperate and we need help and we seek help and we know help is coming, we will do the same. We're going to run towards that help because we want to be relieved of our issue. So, yeah, there's a part here that tells us that that man was relieved because now these demons, these legions that's in me are now focused on the man coming. So they're not paying me much mind. So maybe there's a little piece of him that says, I can go over there and get help. So this is probably why they said worship, because he was relieved enough to go do that. And because of that, we realize that when he worshiped him and begged Jesus not to torment him, that was the demons, not the man. His simulationist attraction to a repulsion from Jesus is striking. And it is difficult to tell how much this man was in control of his actions and how much the demons were. Okay. So we're looking at a possibility that this man at one point was fighting these demons, trying to stop them, trying to get away from them, trying to get relieved. And he got tired. He got tired and he just let it happen. So this is what is leaning towards, that he got tired. And he decided, oh man, I've been fighting these things for the longest and it just ain't working out for me. So now he done gave up, so now it done got worse because he stopped fighting it. So now he stopped fighting it and it done got worse. Now Jesus is here. And because they are now focusing on Jesus, they gave him a little space to say, there go my help. There go my help. I'm going over there. And that's what it leans towards, saying that that's what he went to go do, because he was in control now, because he moved forward. The demons would have preferred move backwards. But usually Jesus is recorded as simply casting demons out rather than talking to them at length. This story is not meant to be a template for modern day exorcism, as some Christians seem to assume when they asked demons to name themselves. This story is an exception, not a rule. So don't try this at home, people. You deal with somebody and you think they might be possessed and all. Don't run up on them and try and do an exorcism and ask them, what's the demon name? Don't do that. I'm advising you immediately, don't do this. Seek help, call 911, get the mental people out there, they can do their job. Do not challenge that because you don't know the outcome. And we don't want to know the outcome. So don't go trying to do an exorcism asking what demon is in you or what legion is with you. No. The scope of this exorcism was greater than any other recorded in the Gospels. Jesus cast 7 demons out of Mary Magdalene, but not this many. In Matthew 12:43-45 shows that it was worse to be inhabited by many evil spirits than just by one. We do not know how many demons this man had. This size of a Roman legion of the time was roughly 6,000 men if both infantry and cavalry were counted. Okay. 6,000 here. Keep that number in mind. However, demons are liars. And even if Jesus compelled them to speak truthfully, they only declared that they were many. So they weren't specific, and they are liars. Emphasis on liars. So that's one of the characteristics of the legion. Compulsive liars will not say the truth. Jesus can compel them to say the truth, and they said many. Not it's 6,000 of us. It's just many. They're messing with the wrong one, though. Not that they were the exact count of a Roman legion. The exact count is not the point. The fact that they could drive the herd of pigs down into a sea does seem to indicate that it was a large number. So with a large number, we hear 6,000 because that's a comparison, a contrast to say many. But what we found out is that we heard that there was a different number of swine. So they telling us regardless it was a big number of legions in this man. So we might think 1, 2 because it expressed us about the physical context, the spiritual context, and then the emotional. But also there was the physical that was he cutting himself. So we got those going on. Then we got to think about his thinking was different. Supernatural power. Hanging out in the tombs. Now we got more than just 3 issues going on. So we have a legion that is many. So when I hear the word many, I know it's more than one. And we already heard about the characteristics that was being affected by observation, not to mention what we couldn't see, but just examined by him just wanting to live there day and night, walking around with no structure to his time limit. In other words, when it got dark, he should have been laying down somewhere. But he walking around mumbling. People got a problem with that. He up early in the morning when you waking up, getting you some coffee, he walking around mumbling. You got a problem with that, and he cutting himself. You can't bind him. So this demon who sees Jesus far off now wants to bargain. So Jesus said, you're going to come up out of there? Don't torment me. Don't beat me. Don't do nothing like that. Let me go on over here. I'll leave here. Let me go over there. Wow. Now we bargaining. So they not being respectful of Jesus and his power, even though they know what he's capable of, but there's a rule. And the rule was, right now is not your time to be tormented. All demons wasn't to be tormented at that time. But they had no business messing with that man like that. So again, look at the plan. He come off the boat. Now he got on the boat, and the time he got on the boat, he went to go rest. He couldn't rest because now the disciples, they can't rest because their nerves are bad because here go a storm rocking the boat. Water coming in. Jesus ain't moved nothing. That water had to hit him. But he ain't moved. Now they come, Lord, you just gonna let us just perish? Oh, ye of little faith. Be still. Storm just stopped. Water get calm. The boat's still moving though. Wow. So by them being in that awe, they still in this awe, right? Okay, now you're going to the cemetery. You're going to the cemetery. Here go this big man. We don't know how much he was weighing or nothing, but I'm going to use a little imagination here and say he had to be about 6'2". Okay, he had to be weighing maybe close to 300-something plus pounds. And he's unshaved, probably got white hair coming out of his mouth, got his hair is all tore up. No, we're gonna give him some clothes. We ain't gonna just do that. We ain't gonna just do that. But he's walking in material that just ain't worthy. It's just dirty, nasty looking. Now Jesus is walking towards him, and the disciples are coming with him. Again, I say the disciples must have sat behind him. Lord, what we doing over here? Yeah, we approaching this big. I don't know, Jesus, you ain't that strong, partner. I mean, we know you got power. We're going to see something here. So Jesus got them. They all back here behind Jesus. He leading. They not on the side no more because the closer they get to the cemetery, the more they fall back. You been around people like that? They will fall back. Even the ones that gossip, they'll talk that mess, and then as soon as you get to the person they're talking about, they back up. And they looking, Don't tell them I said it though. You know? But that's how they do it. They bag up when it's time to confront. But Jesus had no problems with it. So they bargain. And with this bargain, they know that there's a rule. So they was hoping that Jesus would go by the rule. So he sent them over there with the swine. The swine went. And when the swine went, it went into, they tell us, let's see how many. However, the vast numbers highlighted the tremendous power of Jesus in easily overcoming the legion of demons. Okay, we know he sent them over to the swine. Now, we heard the first figure said 6,000, but we're still hearing that the legions are saying many. They're not confirming the exact amount. So we okay with that. That's not the focus. The focus is the power that Jesus has upon approach. Upon coming, on afar, the demons recognized him. They knew what they was about to be challenged. They made a deal, hoping that he would go for it, and said, send me over there. That's power. Okay, we also learn here that Jesus talked to them for a minute. And when he talked to them, he asked them to be truthful. And they what's your name? And then they start lying, we many. In other words, I'm trying to put some fear in you that ain't happening. Not this round. It might have happened with Adam, but it ain't happened with Jesus. So when the demons encountered Jesus, they knew multiple things. First, they knew his identity. Second, they knew that he had power over them. So they appealed to him not to torment them. Third, they knew that he would one day judge them. That's the rule. He knew that was coming. They know that it's coming. So that little stuff that they was mediocre. You know your day coming now. Get on. Okay, yeah. So he went on and did that. Now Matthew recorded that they begged not to be tormented before the time, and Luke added that they begged not to be cast into abyss. Luke in 8:31, demons know they are doomed and have a limited time before they are finally judged. Still true today. They lurking, they around, they doing what they do, but God's people is around too, doing what they do. and trust the angels that are doing it with you. Because when we go out and tell somebody about the good news about Jesus Christ, we're planting the seed of faith, not the seed of fear. And because of that, faith will grow. And when faith grows from a mustard seed, it can be that muscular tree. So we have to remember, sharing the good news of God is our mission, our greatest mission, that we can help serve the church, which is abundantly worldwide. We're not stationed in one area. This sanctuary is where we fellowship. This is where we come together and harmonize, sing and praise and worship the God of our living God. And let him know, we thank you, we appreciate you woke us up this morning. But our mission is outside, helping those who are less fortunate than others. Demons are powerful, but they are powerless before God. Jesus has infinitely more power than a legion of demons who were immediately reduced to gravel. They dramatically highlighted Jesus' power. Not only does he have total power over creation as demonstrated by calming the storm, but he also has power over the supernatural. Hello! We can't miss that. So we're looking at a breakdown of power that Jesus has exhibited. We know he didn't stop the natural, the storms. Now he messing with the supernatural. That kind of power is not here on earth at their will, people, us, humans, but it is in God's hand. And Jesus died so that we could have a right to that tree of life. So when we call up on Jesus and ask him for help in prayer, God says, okay, I see you bringing some more information to me. Okay, some of your peoples need some help, family members. That's how we are. Help them. Now, the ones that's less fortunate may not know how to pray, but we do intercessional prayer. Because somebody prayed for me, I know it, when I was running astray. So I'm going to pray for those who are less fortunate than others, because the seed going to reach them when they ask for help. Because it's like a party. You know you got a birthday coming. You go home, you don't expect no party at your house, especially if you're there alone. Nobody should be in your house having no party. Now, you know you got some friends, associates and stuff, but then to walk in your house and find a party and all these people in here, and you never thought that they would come together to say, surprise. The feeling of warmth is what you get. Same thing with God. You sit, you do your prayers diligently, you give them worship, you praise, you pray for the things that's challenging to you. It might be your health, might be housing, might be people, might be situations, might be some circumstances, but you pray in asking God for support and some help, right? Now you doing that, then he comes through. How you think that came through? Because you prayed in sincerity, a wretch up there, and whoever's praying for you joined in and the prayer went. So it wasn't in vain. It made its way. And when it got to him and it relieved you, hello, because you don't stand alone. Today, I'm standing right here, but you standing with me. Even though you're sitting, you standing. Everybody's standing. Anybody listening to me in the virtual world, they standing with me. I may not see them physically, but I have to trust my faith. My faith says I got brothers and sisters all over the world. Some are praying for me, some are not. I'm praying for some, and some I may not be, because I may not know them, but I can put the prayer out there, because the one who needs it will get it. The sincerity of a prayer will not go in vain. Insincere, I need $100, so I go get some groceries today. Come on. God, he provides for us. You may not get that $100 to go get that grocery, but I'm going to show you where you can go get some groceries. So it happens. But right here, these demons and Jesus not even worried about them. He ain't bust a sweat, but the disciples have learned something here. Wow, he commands them too. Now, when we look at it, let's look at what who were immediately reduced to groveling. The dramatic highlighted Jesus' power. Not only does he have total power over creation and demonstrated the calming of a storm, but he also has power over the supernatural. Now, let's look at the pigs. Okay. The demons begged to be sent into the pigs. Surprisingly, Jesus granted their request, and the pigs rushed into the sea and drowned. What was the demons' motivation, and why did Jesus grant them their request? Sincere Christians have proposed a variety of explanations. Since the gospel writers do not clearly provide the answer, we will survey some of the explanations without picking one. We should study the passage and try to come to a correct understanding of it and be charitable towards others who come to a different understanding. In other words, this is an open chart. You can think what you want. Everybody's entitled to this part. But the question that's here that we're looking at is, when the demons got into the pigs, first they want to know why they asked to go there. Then they want to know why the pigs ran and just killed themselves. Again, we're dealing with supernatural. It's hard to fathom supernatural when you ain't dealt with supernatural. So your imagination, your creativeness, your knowledge, your inspection of information is going to take you places where a lot of theologians have already been. And they haven't came up with an answer, because it's hard to fathom, first of all, the demons leaving. He didn't have a name, leaving him. They asked to go somewhere else. And then when they asked to go, in those days, because it was in the Gentile area, the pigs were part of the market. People grew their pigs and for their houses, and they ate pigs, so they was considered defiled, no good, right, unclean. So is that why the spirits asked to go over there? Because they knew that they were troubled and unclean. So you take unclean spirits and send them to an unclean body, and they created a stupor so harsh that they became suicidal. It's hard to try and fathom it, because you have to understand, first of all, the pig's behavior. If they so defiled, what's their behavior though? They eat anything. They call them carnivores, because they just chew it all up. You know, the wild pigs do that. These here was grown, we talking about in their time. See, here we have cut off land. They got grass and trees. There they might have had wheat. We don't know, barley out there. Whatever they was eating, they was considered foul. So you take something that's already foul and put a demon in it. Right. So they became suicidal. That's a high degree of thinking that you have to capture. And for me, for one, I'm not going to try and capture how they did that and why they did that. And I'm still looking at the power. They asked to be there. He said, go. They got permission to go. If he didn't, thank you. If he wouldn't have said go, would they have went? So it's like he gave them permission to go. They said, could you send us over here? Go. So when he did that, he released them there to the pigs. Right, because they already filed, but right. So, thank you. All knowing means Jesus knew what them pigs was going to do when they got over there. That was the mission. I'm not going to torment you, but you're going to get out of here. So let me put you in traffic and send you on your way. And they went straight into the water, to the sea. And they wasn't tormented. Because we don't know if they still survived or not, but they were sent away from there. And by dealing with the Gentiles in their area at that time, you know, That was amazing. Because the guy now is relieved. Can you imagine that? No, we got to remember something. He been through a whole lot of transitions. These demons was tearing him up. I see him to be exhausted. I see him finally taking a real inhale, exhale, because whoever he was before this happened, he's coming back. That's right. So is this why we call Jesus the Redeemer? Y'all didn't see me going there. But the Redeemer has redeemed. Huh? Took what was bothering him, tormenting him, and harming him, causing him to be in a state of mind he probably never fathomed to be, and probably just this much of him was left, trying to fight and couldn't fight no more and was struggling, and he seen Jesus and he ran up on him. That little bit, could that be that mustard seed of faith that got him to move? Here come my help, for which I call. The Bible contents has a lot of nourishment in it, I'm telling you. But right here, this part, to send them pigs on, and it asks us to just have an open mind and figure out how that really rolled. We have to identify the fact that the power Jesus had over the supernatural versus what he had over the natural. This, again, is a power that is hard for us to fathom, but it's beyond here. It's beyond here. Everything we know is here. But everything Jesus knew was there and here. When we look at that closely and we see that kind of power in that day and age, and the power now, healing people who have cancer, people who are bedridden and was told that you ain't gonna making it because they trusted in God. That power is still here. It's available. It's here. It's ours. We have to continue to grow in our relationship with God. I keep pushing that because it's not the humanistic relationship, it's the spiritual relationship, which calls for meditation, prayer without ceasing, and trusting in the Word of God. Yeah, it's multiple books out there, and I usually operate off of the King James first because that's the one I knew, I grew up on. I know it's got the wording that sounds different, but I don't know about you, but mentally, our mind will correct that word and give it to us as the instead of thy. Some other words too that we can grasp a hold to. Then I'll reflect on the other books to translate a little bit more, and then I'll use that. But the Word of God is all knowing, all seeing, and all powerful. And we have it available in our Bibles. We have the Word available to us, and I don't know about you, but every church I've ever been in, a Bible was free. A Bible was free. And yet they have stores that sell Bibles. Go figure. You'll go to the store to buy the Bible, so you won't come to the sanctuary? Or will you go buy the Bible? Because me, I had to get the large print, so I did go buy mine. I needed the large print. My eyes started doing funny stuff. So I needed to be able to read better and efficient. So I went and got the big letters, but I went and got the King James. But I'm looking at the power of God, knowing us before we got here to sacrifice himself way back then. So today we can have the right to the tree of life. Give us a way when we think it's no way. When we think it's no way, it's because we lean to our own understanding. But when we know there's a way, we talk to God in our trying time. When we don't have no other way out, we know how to talk to him. We don't want to get to that point because it's so sincere, it's so heartfelt. We don't want nobody to hear it, so we have to go to our quiet place. But we're willing to go there. So can we go there to build our relationship with him? Yeah. Can we do better than what we're doing? Yeah. When you know better, you do better. But this demon or legion had to let go because Jesus said, yeah, go ahead. Because you made this deal, I'm not going to torment you, but go on over there. Now they gone. So the guy, he didn't survive. So whether Jesus allowed the demons to drown the pigs or judge them after allowing them into the herd, we should address Jesus' motivation. Why would he allow the pigs to die? Several ideals have been proposed. First, the death of the herd dramatically revealed what Jesus was dealing with. It is one thing to say Jesus cast many demons out of a man. It is another to see a herd of 2,000 pigs wildly trample down a cliff and drown. Wow. They saying that could have been a public statement. You didn't see the demons within that man, so I'm finna show you publicly that the demons is going in there. So let me get out of here. I'd exhausted the clock. Just know the power. Know the power of God. Because in the beginning it says Jesus cast out legions. That's power. That's another way of power getting out. So let us always remember when we read Mark 5, chapter 5, verses 1 through 20, if you reread your lesson, you'll find the power, the illustration, and how he demonstrates this power, not only for the public to see where I was getting to, but also his disciples. So at the closing of our Sunday school lesson, in the essence of time, may God bless you, may God keep you.